good. So there is an issue of education. I like that. Let's add that to the list. Thank you, Christoph. Somebody did his reading. Education is a problem. Agreed. Eliam, another problem.
Slavery.
Slavery is a problem. I will not disagree with that. What about women?
They're a problem.
Women are a problem. You wish you had that problem.
Gender roles.
Talk to me.
There's definitely tension between groups of people, especially, I'm pretty sure for the South and like the North and the South.
What's that called? Very important term. Sectionalism.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Almost say segregation.
Talk to me. That's a solution. What's the problem? Alcoholism. Did we not just elect a president who was like, I grew up drinking in a log cabin and make me president? And they're like, yeah, America! Pick that guy. Yeah. I'm a war hero and I grew up as an alcoholic 6-year-old. Please make me president. I'll die in 35 days. Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. Talk to me.
Mental health.
Mental health. There you go. Some other stuff you guys are missing.
Women like rights.
Women lack rights.
Something about religion.
Women's rights. Okay. Anything else?
Oh, there was like a lack of American. What was it? No, because Emerson, he did a speech about how like America didn't have its own intellectual identity.
Lack of intellectual identity. We still, he always does. We still fancy ourselves because we can read the chapter in 30 minutes, takes you 3 hours, and he doesn't read it. Obviously. Bro, I see you read the documents in class. Everyone else is done. You're on the third line. So, a couple other issues. Bipartisanship. It's a good English word of the day. Bipartisanship. What does that mean, bipartisanship, if you read about it? Yeah. Bi means two. Yeah, that Americans in general are more loyal to their party than they are to their country. Same with sectionalism. More loyal to their section than they are to their country. There's a whole bunch of problems.
Is immigration one?
Immigration can be one. Sure.
Oh, cool. What? Donald Trump.
So, I'm going to argue that all these problems are very important problems that need addressing, but all of these problems we can call growing pains. Who's gone through a growth spurt before? Right, you grow a lot in a short time. It wasn't grown yet. We're waiting. Right? And when you grow a lot,
I'm on legs, bro.
congratulations. Yeah. So, when you grow, this guy's disgusting.
I did not say it's I did not, you know I would say.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When you grow quickly, over a short period of time, it can hurt. Your joints, well, you're still like 5'2", so yeah, so you're like, what are you talking about? It can hurt your joints, it can hurt your back, it can hurt your muscles. Because you're growing quickly and your body's adjusting. Our country has grown quickly, has it not? Let's try this like we're actually paying attention. No way. Has our country grown quickly?
Yes.
Give me some examples.
Slavery. It expanded like.
Okay, slavery expanded, sure, but why? How? That's not an example of our country. Go ahead.
Told us that wherever we move, like if we move north, right?
Yep.
Slavery comes along with it.
In the north?
No,
Bruce.
but like back there.
No. Bruce.
Industrialization,
Yeah.
market revolution.
Our economy's grown quickly. Talk to me.
Oh, a hell of a lot of infrastructure.
Infrastructure's grown quickly. Has our population grown quickly? Yeah, our population is growing very quickly through both birth growth and also immigration.
Slavery.
And slavery. Has our territory expanded?
Yeah.
The Louisiana Purchase, the Adams-Onis Treaty for Florida. Moral of the story, not yet, we're talking about Texas, period 5, but yes. Moral of the story, our country's grown very rapidly. And when you grow very rapidly, you have problems. So I'm going to say all of these things are problems that are either present or are exposed because of growth happening very quickly. So today we're talking about the pursuit of perfection. This is the main thing that sets the Second Great Awakening apart from the first. Very important we get our heads around this aspect. The Second Great Awakening is about pursuing perfection, about making the world a better place. And because you're trying to make the world a better place, the Second Great Awakening spawns a ton of reform movement. Brett, what does antebellum mean? Before conflict. In American history, when we say antebellum, what are we referring to? Good. So pre-Civil War reform movements. Very, very nice. 2 prompts. The first one I'll be able to answer in the first couple slides, just verbally. The second one will take us the entire time. Santos, read us the first prompt, please.
Compare and contrast the First and Second Great Awakening and their influence on American society and culture.
Cool. So they're going to have more in common with each other than not. But there's a couple of key differences that I will help you get your mind around. The second prompt, Brett.
Why we could causes for antebellum reform movements, economic and social factors.
So why? Why do we need and why does this happen that we have a bunch of reform movements that all kind of happen at the same time? Key concept is there. And I'm going to go back to the title and focus on just this idea of pursuit of perfection. Are there problems in today's society?
Yeah.
2018 America, yes. How many of them are on my list?
Just immigration, education, mental health, all of them except slavery.
Do we still see racism problems that came from slavery though?
Yeah.
Oh. What?
We lack happy education.
Thanks.
I don't think women
He still the teacher. We got a crappy education system. Like, man, I put on a necktie today and everything to be abused like this. Yeah, right.
We have like, oh, maybe that's
What's wrong with you? Right? We can talk about mental health and your weird, creepy obsession with Earl Bank. That's fine. If you like that greasy wavy hair, that's your style. I'm not here to judge you. If you prefer beauty that represents a 12-year-old Saints jersey, then man, do your thing. Represent, my brother. Represent. So the big theme for today is this idea of pursuing perfection. We'll talk about that why as we go forward. But first, we're going to read a very important, or an excerpt from a very important text from a dude named Alexis de Tocqueville. Now, Tocqueville is a fantastic contributor to American society. Let me tell you why. In the 1830s and 40s, Tocqueville visits the U.S. from France. And obviously, with the global context of what the French have gone through, they've tried to follow us on the democratic path. Has it worked out for them?
No.
Are we alive today?
No. I mean, yeah, but France don't.
So France tried to follow us on this idea of declaring independence and creating a democracy. Did it work out very well for them?
No.
I think so.
They went from monarchy to cutting people's heads off to Napoleon to all kinds of chaos. France has had a struggle. So Tocqueville, as a political thinker, comes to the U.S. and tries to figure out, like, what makes America work? Why is America able to go from monarchy to democracy and do it relatively smoothly? Change hands, power to party, from Federalists to Democratic Republicans, from Democratic Republicans to Democrats, from Democrats to Whigs, from Whigs back to Democrats, and do so peacefully. What happens in America that makes America America? What happens in America that makes democracy work in America? So he tours the whole United States, small towns, big towns, north, south, west, to try to figure out what makes Americans tick, why America is America. He's actually, it's not in here, but he's one of the first people who notices how disgusting the South is because of slavery. He'll point out in a different, this is a 480-page book, it's long. He'll point out in a different chapter, he said, I toured the North, I was in Ohio, seeing how industrious and learned and intellectual everybody is. The minute I crossed the Ohio River into Kentucky, slavery, Ohio River's our dividing line, he says the entire mood changed. The rich are very stagnant and do nothing. There's no new ways of thinking. There's no new ways of business. They're heavily reliant on just slavery and crops, and there's no business, there's no progress, there's no intellectual ability. He's a really early observer of the fact that northern and southern society are incredibly different just by crossing a river and going somewhere where slavery is legal. So he publishes this fantastic book which gives us really good insight into what's happening in America at the time. I think it's good insight because he's not from America. He's observing as an outsider. So he's not biased by American bias. He's not biased by one party over the other. He's just there to see what the hell's going on. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes for you to read it. And just point out for me on the right-hand side, what is he noticing? What is he emphasizing? What are the features of American society that he's narrowing in on? And then what does that reveal about America as a whole? So take 5 to read and analyze and respond for me, please. And then we'll go from there. Time to take into your reading. About 2.5 or so minutes left. So what does he emphasize? What is unique about America? or so seconds left. Points out some very valuable observations about American society. All right, so take one, talk to your people. What are the key observations that Tocqueville makes about American society as a whole? And how does that better help us understand the context that the Second Great Awakening happens within? Okay? Keep your focus on that. 1 minute, chat it out, go.
Huh? What is that?
Are you trying to be racist, Henry?
Jenry, what do you mean when you say you're one of us?
Yeah, white people.
What does it say about France?
Okay, oh. So what do you think?
Yeah, is that they have the freedom of religion?
Religion facilitates the use of democracy. Look right there.
He's
Boom.
just saying that unification factor.
You know what else is nice?
They're trying to make a decision.
Equality of conditions.
So if they always try to, if they
So the equality condition helps create opinions and new ideas, and that comes into the idea of democracy because everybody has equal chance to share what they think about the American political system.
All right.
Both sides are unified?
I heard some really good things, which makes me happy. Based on my observations, we're getting better at reading these things and getting to the heart of them quickly, which makes me happy. Brett, I heard a really good chat from you, sir. So I never heard from you today, but you have something to respond to that I was looking for. So share with the whole class what you were getting at with Tocqueville's perspective.
Tocqueville was saying that America was thriving due to the equality, the equal conditions of people, which can lead to the creation of new ideologies that were like accepted and able to be spread.
Okay, so unlike Europe, people are more equal in America. Sure. And because they're more equal, it's easier to spread new ideas. It's easier to spread for new intellectual progress. It's easier to spread the thought process. Yeah, the idea of progress for society. That American society is advancing faster than elsewhere in the world. Cool. Cool. Santos, what else?
He also pointed out that religion facilitates democracy,
Religion in America, unlike where?
unlike France.
Unlike France, it's religion that's facilitating democracy. Isn't that weird? Doesn't that seem dumb to us? And he points out in Europe, normally the places that are most religious are the least free. And in America, it's that freedom is being spread through religion. That's unique. What about religion in America allows for that idea of freedom to spread via religion? Chris, what about American religion allows this idea of freedom to spread via religion?
Wouldn't it be like the democratic principles that were instilled in religion in the First Great Awakening?
Yes, the democratic principles which are from the First Great Awakening. I like that you brought that back up. Thank you.
So that it was like to be equal and like how they like hold things. I forgot who, but it was the way they would like give their lectures outside.
Yep.
With
Whitfield.
everybody equally.
Mhm.
So that kind of set them all as equal under the Lord.
Agreed. The First Great Awakening does provide for some access to religion that was not available otherwise, which kind of democratizes religion. Agreed. Talk to me. Good job.
Like freedom from and of religion.
Freedom from and of religion. Absolutely. Absolutely. What happens in America religiously that's not happening elsewhere, though? There's a ton of...
It's spreading.
The religion is like a biblical foundation. So
Kind of. Take a shot. Well, yeah, there's way more diversity of religion in America than elsewhere. Good job. We're all getting there. See what happens when we just think things through? I dig it. That in America, religion can advance democracy because in America there's diversity, there's denominations, there's freedom. To Cortez's point, in religion, the way America practices, everybody's kind of the same. That we all have access. Good. Good. So, big picture, as we begin today's discussion, when it says Great Awakening, what does that mean? For first and second, this is a similarity. to have a great awakening of any kind? No, not necessarily.
Revival.
Revival. To get re-woken up, to get re-excited about something. Now, this is the last of the Great Awakenings that have that title, but this is not the last time that America will get re-excited about religion. We have our first Great Awakening, which is largely in response to the Enlightenment. We have our second Great Awakening. In this case, will largely be in response to the Market Revolution and the shift away from church in favor of politics and money and economic growth. I'll just so you guys know for the rest of the school year. In all of period 6, talk about the big industrial revolution, the Gilded Age, when the whole country focused on getting rich and industrialism and monopolies and corruption. And then we'll have the progressive era, which will try to reform this big business and try to go back to the roots of America. Through World War I and World War II, we'll focus on dominating the world and after the war and beating communism. And then after that, we go right back in the 1950s to conservatism. Back to the church, back to American values. We add things like under God to the Pledge of Allegiance and the dollar bill in the 1950s because of a Great Awakening. It's not called that. 1960s, and to a smaller extent, the 70s, we have civil rights. We have the hippies smoking a bunch of dope, having sex with everybody, living it up. 1980s, we go right back to conservatism and Reagan and Christianity and being morally upstanding again. Why do I tell you this? Things you're not going to learn for months. To show you that all of American history is always a moral and social pendulum. You guys know how pendulums work? Yeah. Swing back and forth, right, or a seesaw. Then you go over here, Enlightenment, Great Awakening, Market Revolution, democratization of politics, money, westward expansion, slavery, Second Great Awakening. Gilded Age, industrialism, crazy money, get rich, corruption, politics.
Third Awakening.
Progressive era, arguably the Third Great Awakening. So it's important we get our minds around the fact that this is simply a response to other societal factors, that nothing in U.S. history happens by itself. Nothing happens in a vacuum. But every single thing that happens is happening in response to other developments that are happening societally speaking. So here's our Second Great Awakening. Again, the things I want you to know as we get going, that'll help make everything else make sense if you focus on what's happening and why at the very beginning. Again, it's Protestant revivalism. Very similar to the First Great Awakening. However, what it is a negative response, a rebuke, so to speak, of the original sin Calvinist puritanical doctrine. Now, under Calvinism and Puritanism, just for background, if you forgot, when you are born, God knows. Either you are going to hell, likely. Yeah, I know. That's where all the fun people are. And you're going to heaven. Predestination. It doesn't matter what you do, what decision you make. You were predestined from birth to go to heaven or hell. So if you believe in predestination, is there any benefit to living a good life? No. God knows. Believe me, God and I both know where I'm going. So do most of you.
To heaven?
Home at the end of work. What are you talking about?
Isn't home heaven?
So it's helpful to get our minds around the fact that the Second Great Awakening rebukes that notion. That you are not born to go to heaven or hell. You are born to improve the world around you. And if you do that, you'll go to heaven. Now, are you motivated to live a better life?
Yeah.
Is anybody else in here awake besides me?
No.
Good, I'm glad. Luis is awake. How does it make the rest of you guys feel? So, if I tell you, Kat, when you're born, God knows heaven or hell, what are you going to do with your life? Good. Now, if I tell you, Kelly, if you live a really good life and you fix the world around you, you might go to heaven. What are you going to do with your life? Live your life? Fix the world around you? Try to be a good person? Right? In a very religious society, as Tocqueville just pointed out. So because of that idea of rejecting predestination, we see people trying to fix the world around them because they're worried about going to heaven. It inspires the idea of perfectionism. There's this huge belief in the Second Great Awakening that if we fix society's problems here, Jesus will come back. Those of you who are at least moderately religious, raise your hand if you know at least something about religion. Yeah, you've been to church a couple times in your life? Cool. There's this idea in Revelation at the end of the New Testament that's like, the second coming is near, that God's going to send Jesus back and it's going to be heaven on earth, but it's only going to happen under certain conditions. People are believing that coming is near. We're going to speed up the second coming of Christ by fixing all of society's problems. Slavery, problem. Jesus won't come back until slavery's gone. Women's rights, mental health, alcoholism, all this stuff, if we fix it, then God will come back, we'll have heaven on earth, we'll live forever. Boom. Sounds kind of weird in retrospect. But at the time, to these people, it made a lot of sense. It really mattered. So we see a bunch of denominational growth, some new denominations. To Ruby's point, Baptists and Methodists are new denominations. We see, for the first time, a huge increase in women in churches. Women play a key role, we'll talk about that a lot going forward, in these new churches. We see for the first time African Americans getting involved heavily in Christianity as well. What's called the African Methodist Church, or African Methodist Episcopalianism, AME. And all of this is going to inspire social reform movements to fix the problems of society. The two big ones that we need to draw attention to, the two main ones, are temperance for alcohol and abolition of slavery. So big picture for your first two questions, growth causes the Second Great Awakening. The market revolution causes the Second Great Awakening. A shift away from religion causes the Second Great Awakening because it's a revival. We see the big numbers we should focus on are from blue to yellow. Baptists skyrocket, Catholics don't, but they do later when a bunch of other immigrants come. Congregational skyrockets, Episcopalian skyrockets, Lutheran skyrockets, Methodist skyrockets. So all these denominations are having a revival of people getting more excited about church again. So why? Big picture, after the American Revolution, people in America got less religious. They got less religious, which means we have a chance for revivalism. Early 19th century, so the early 1800s, church membership is down. Less people are part of an established church, and it's declining. So not only is membership low, it's also going down. America's become a less religious society after the Revolutionary War. This is partially because the American Revolution has fully separated church and state. So now you don't have to worry about church membership to vote, church membership for society, because this American Revolution is really founded on separation of church and state. So people are like, oh, I'm not going to be forced to go to church by society anymore? Cool, screw it. How many of you guys go to church or have gone to church in the past because your parents made you? Same, dog. Same. When your parents stopped making you, you still going to go?
No.
I got
Yeah,
banned.
what?
I got banned from church.
You got banned from church? We're probably banned from A-Push too. Don't shut up. So, but think about your parents. That was society pre-revolution. That society was so heavily influenced with the church that everyone kind of had to go. Once we fully separate church and state, people were like, yeah, I'm going to go next Sunday. And then next Sunday comes, and like, man.
What, really want to go?
I'm going to go next Sunday. Right? So because of society's influence, people get less reliant on the church. However, as our economy gets more democratic, market revolution, more jobs, more immigrants, more people involved in the economy, does our political system also get more democratic? What are we talking about with Jacksonian democracy? Do more people get to vote? Yeah. Therefore, did our political system get more democratic? Yeah. So those two things happen. Our religious system also gets a little more democratic. We're going to start using mass appeal, kind of like Jacksonian democracy, trying to appeal to the masses, to try to get as many people involved as possible, to meet people where they are and bring them in. Very similar to the way politics happened in the early 1800s. And we're going to really focus on the idea that it's people that are capable of improving themselves, so they should improve themselves as opposed to just focusing on predestination and dying when they do. So for your second question, it's important you guys understand that the Second Great Awakening is very similar to Jacksonian democracy. and then it's trying to appeal to as many people as possible where they are. Where they are. This use of mass media, this use of public opinion, this use of appealing to people's emotions is very similar from the growth of democracy in this time period, as well as the growth of the economy in this time period. Good. Good. We're in good shape. So, this renewed religious revivalism, if we're going to start and stop some end dates, we go like 1800 to 1810s, into the late 1830s. It's hard to put a start date and a stop date on a movement. So how do you decide when the movement starts? How do you decide when the movement's over? But 1800, 1810s, and the 1830s has some real big similarities to the First Great Awakening and some differences. Highly emotional meetings. Similar or different from the first one? Very similar. Right? Outdoor meetings. I read you that sermon about dangling you over the pit of hell. That's pretty emotional. So very similar there in that we have emotional meetings. It's going to start largely in the west, the frontier of New York, and spread all over the country. And it's this big push to rebirth America religiously, and this is the big key. We're stressing salvation or being saved through repentance, through your actions, as opposed to predestination. But if we're going to stress people's actions, people are going to act better. Hopefully. Unless, like many of you, you just don't give a shit. The big name to know for the Second Great Awakening is Charles Finney. You guys remember the two names for the First Great Awakening? Whitfield. He remembers. Jesus Christ isn't in the class anymore. George Whitfield, a hand?
Give us a hand.
Go ahead. Jonathan Edwards. Good. Good. So Charles Finney is our name for the second. Again, he's emphasizing free will. We make our own choices. Make better choices. We get saved. Everybody can be saved. It doesn't matter who you are. Rich, middle class, poor, white, black, otherwise. Everybody can be saved. As long as we try to perfect society around us. And even he starts including women in the process as well. It's this move away from this idea of Puritans' original sin, that you're born with sin, you're going to go to hell. It looks like this. It looks similar to the First Great Awakening. It's outdoor. It's exciting. I don't see a dog, but it might be the next picture. See? Same idea. Original outdoor raves, you know, it's like the first Coachella. But it's like Jesus-cella. Churchella. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Christcella. But it's got these new revival techniques of meeting over a longer period of time. Like a 3, 4, 5 day meeting. You guys think church is long now? Whew. Church was 4 days.
I mean, still do that. They do it for
Yeah.
Camps, no?
Yeah, same idea. Here's a new one. Public prayer for women. Encouraging women to pray in public. Who would have agreed with this in history? Who would have agreed with this in history? Come on.
Jefferson.
Oh, Susan. Yes, Susan B. No.
Candy station?
No. Anne Hutchinson. Who got basically banished from Massachusetts for praying in public. Yeah, she's got sent to Rhode Island. See? If you pay attention, I'm constantly reviewing. You just got to pay attention. It stressed emotionalism. We're getting excited about church again. And it largely starts here, like I told you, Western New York. And it spreads very rapidly to the entire rest of the country. Less so in the South, because they're not really into the whole reform idea. But largely to the west, to the frontier, and elsewhere in the north as well. So let me ask you, what developments allow this Second Great Awakening to spread so rapidly? Why? Why can the Second Great Awakening spread to be a nationwide movement? Go for it.
Railroads?
Railroads is part of it. These aren't railroads so much as they are canals. Big, yeah, thank you. Infrastructure. What else? So we can get from point A to point B faster. The world has shrunk. That means our ideas can transmit faster. What else? The printing press. Literacy levels. The telegraph. Yeah. So because our country's more connected than ever before, thanks Clay, and those ideas of interconnectivity, of infrastructure, this small movement that started Syria will spread nationwide. This is why it makes sense that it happens in context of the market revolution, of the transportation revolution, steamboats, canals, roads, bridges. That's why all these period 4 things happen in tandem. This area that's shaded in from your reading is called the burned out or burned over district, because it was said that they've burned through everybody, not literally. Salem witch trials. They've burned through everybody that lived there in terms of converting them to Christ, and there's nobody left in that area that needed to be converted anymore. The movement's burned over the whole area, and there's nobody there that needs any more conversion. So from an impact standpoint, the big deal is reform movements, which I think if you guys just think linear here, that makes a lot of sense. If I tell you, Jonathan, when you're bored, you can go to heaven or hell. Where would you prefer to go? Don't answer that for now. Answer that like 1830s America, when we're a very religious society. Where would you want to go? Heaven. Now, if you work to make heaven on earth and to fix society's problems, you're more likely to go to heaven. What are you going to do on earth? Nothing? Typical. Let's use Josue, who wants to actually think about something on a Monday morning. Josue, you can go to heaven or hell. If you live a good life and try to fix society's problems, you're going to go to heaven. What are you doing with your life? You're going to make the world a better place. What a saint. God, he's a beautiful man. He's going to make the world a better place. You're going to relax? Cool. That's why I didn't ask you, because I really don't care. Now, moral of the story, we start seeing some more reform-minded churches. Churches that are about reform, about fixing society. In the north, we start growing some of these denominations, like the Baptists and Methodists, even in the south as well. And the idea is that each person, all of you have a duty to fight sin. It's all of our jobs, everybody in America's job to fix society's problems. So of course, with that in mind, we see that the 1830s and 40s and 50s is a huge era of reform. Because if it's everybody's job to do so, we should all do so. Social reform. We're fighting things like dueling. Maybe we should stop shooting each other when we have problems. Profanity. Can't go to heaven if you swear all the time. That's why I'm screwed. Drinking hard liquor are seen as sins we should fix. But many northern religious people, evangelicals, look at slavery as the big problem of all of these sins. If we can stop slavery, we can fix a lot of society's problems. So this is going to be interesting. Because it's this that's going to create more sectionalism. It's this that's going to divide even Baptists into Northern and Southern Baptists over the issue of slavery, Methodists into Northern and Southern Methodists. And what we'll look at, this is more of a period 5 thing, but it kind of helps, is to Tocqueville's point that religion is the most important political institution in the 1850s. The first thing to split is the political parties. We'll split into Northern and Southern Democrats over the issue of slavery. First comes the party split, then comes the denomination split. And then the argument is it was easier to break up the parties over slavery than it was the churches over slavery. So it goes party split, churches split, nation splits. Civil War. Yeah, what's up?
So like, if they were all like before they split, they were all united under one president. So if the North and South split, would the South just like have their own president?
We'll talk about that in period 5. So it's important we understand the significance of religion in American society. So most of these reforms are really going to take place in the North. Shocking. Let the North be more reform-minded than the South. But most of them are going to be pushed by middle-class women. I'm going to let you talk about this for a second because it's a really important piece for the rest of American history. It's women, and it's largely women from the middle class that are driving these reforms, that are pushing these reforms. Take a minute with your partner on both of those. Why women? Why middle class? 1 minute, go. And it's not about their own oppression either. We're talking about temperance, abolition, mental asylum reform, education reform. Why women? Why middle class? Go. That's part of it. But again, you're focusing on themselves. Why are they involved in other reforms?
For me, I'm guessing some middle class women were the ones like leading the movement was because they were more educated.
I agree.
Like, not to like, it's weird. Like,
You know how women were in charge of war based on
Well, I mean, he has a point. Like, women don't play like such a significant role during this time. They were just in their homes.
What's they say about it? What's they say about it? Why?
The ones that they were wage.
Right? Certifiably insane? Right. So, this is going to be a thing for every social push going forward, is it's almost always driven by women and almost always out of the middle class. Linda, why? Why women?
Oh, because I think that since they were like, they allowed women to like get educated and
Oh.
that women were able to like acknowledge them and make like movements that would support them.
Okay, sure, that women have more access to things than they did previously. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Kat, why else women?
I didn't like get to finish my thought, but I was kind of leading to the fact that the middle class are not lower class nor higher class.
You're right. That is the definition of middle class.
So they're
But I get where you're going with this. I do. So I want you to get there though. Keep going.
No, I don't know how to finish the thought.
Think-
You know what I'm trying to say?
I do, but I want you to say it. So why does it matter that they're not higher class or lower class?
Because they don't have that many privileges.
Ah.
But they do have more than the lower class.
So they have enough privileges to recognize what they don't have, but also enough privileges to do something about it. Slaney.
I think
Good
it
job.
also could have been because women had always been seen as that symbol that represent morality, like they raise their kids to be morally right.
Good point. Women are supposed to be the more morally upstanding of the two sexes. That's a huge point as well. Good job. What else are women doing?
Working.
preparing the next generation.
Yeah. They're at home, preparing the next generation. They're working some early in their lives, the Lowell girls, right? But eventually, because of the cult of domesticity, they're at home, preparing the next generation. So isn't that a logical place to start moral movements? Especially in the middle class, because in the middle class, you don't benefit so much from all these privileges that you don't want to end them. But you also have enough influence that you're not just fighting for your day-to-day survival like the lower class. All phenomenal points. So from an economic standpoint, middle class makes sense for reform. And from a social and sexual standpoint, to Slane's point, women make more sense for reform as well. Who are the ones drinking? Men. Interesting. So, all of this is going to lead to what's called this benevolent or well-intentioned empire of reform movements. And everybody's trying to do something. We're all trying to fix society from some way. Whether it's religious conversion, go to church, love Jesus, act well, don't go to hell. Or morale, people that are crusading for moral issues. Anti-gambling, anti-prostitution, anti-slavery. People that are pushing for end of alcohol abuse, but all trying to fix society's problems from this moralistic approach. And of course it's women. Right? The 19th century is still a man's world. Women have it far better in America than in Europe. A far better access to education and work and progress. But women are definitely still the submerged sex. We start seeing women avoiding marriage. It's a big deal. That demonstrates independent thinking. But we have seen, because of the market revolution, the distinct sphere for men and women. that men go to work, women stay home. Men make the money, women raise the children. And it's these separate spheres that are where women start seeing these questions of where do I belong in society? I don't like this sphere. Question for you, real quick. If you're working on a farm as a family, does anybody have a separate sphere? No. What wakes you up? The sun. Right? And then you all go work, you all go milk cows, you all go pick tomatoes, whatever the hell it is you do. And then when you go to bed, when the sun goes down. There's no like separate spheres of life. But because of the market revolution, men are working out of the home. It starts dividing society into domestic women, working men. Now the first thing to attack is alcohol. I have a really good cartoon here for you, piece of propaganda. I have a better view of it here. Here you go. It's titled The Drunkard's Progress. It's a good cartoon. Take 2 minutes with you and your partner, looking at it. It's pretty good. And at the bottom, answer what's the purpose of this example of antebellum era propaganda. 2 minutes, chat it out, look at the cartoon, go.
Alright, so what you see is that most of the men are having a glass, like it's a party for them, but then the mom like suffering, I guess, or the child.
Yeah. I see you, Sonny.
I think what's the thing or having to deal with this.
I'm sympathetic in the country. Always ask me, who's bad, who's sympathetic.
Step 5,
the amount, obtain, jolly comparison, and poverty and disease. 7, forsaken by
desperation and crime, death by suicide. So alcohol makes a man go through all of this.
The person will feel sorry and sympathy.
No, she supports them, right?
No, she's crying.
But it's more than the emotional approach, right? The sympathy.
She suffers with the
You have to carry the burden of all
Are you saying men are alcoholics? You make me sick.
20 seconds.
I thought you were a man.
Basically saying that drinking starts
All right. So let me walk you through this. First, a glass with a friend. Can't hurt. There's nothing wrong with that. Just one glass with a friend. Next, cold with the boys. Next, a glass to keep the cold out. Because now you're using it to fix some sort of problem in your life. Finally, one glass too much. He's obviously had a little too much. He's a little nap time. A glass too much. Ooh. Next, we got drunk and riotous. Look at this guy. He's grabbing somebody by the neck. He's a little more violent. Drunk and riotous. Followed by step 5, the summit, the peak of the mountain is attained. Jolly companions, a confirmed drunkard. At this point, how do they look? Yeah, but happy. I mean, how are they dressed? They're still dressed well. Yeah, but this is as good as it gets. He's a confirmed drunkard. He's got some jolly companions. Everybody's having a great time. And then from there, it is downhill. Step 6, poverty and disease. Now he's all disheveled. He's got flies around him. Now he's become forsaken or forgotten by his friends. He's dressed almost like a homeless person. Finally, we get to desperation and crime. He's robbing somebody. to try to keep his habit alive, followed by death by suicide. God, that escalated quickly. By step 8. Who does he leave behind? His wife and his kid. Their home. The drunkard's progress. From the first glass to the grave.
I never see that.
It's my job. What do you mean?
Like, what does she mean? Like,
She didn't notice that there was words on there. That's all she meant. So, what is this trying to get across? Elion, what is the purpose of this example?
I see, based on the reading, where it's like talking about there's a problem with alcoholism in America.
Okay. So what's the purpose of this? Go ahead.
So, or I'm not completely sure, but isn't this trying to say that, sorry, I lost my chain of thought.
You're okay.
So I feel like it's pretty much saying that, this is why, like, we need more women, like, involved, for the fact that they're way more moral than men. Because I feel like during this time, like, not saying that there wasn't any women who were, like, alcoholics, but this time mainly alcohol was prevalent, like, now.
Significantly, like 95%. Okay, so it's trying to say we should do what as a society? Yeah, drink less. That's it. It's trying to convince people that there's no such thing as just 1 or 2 drinks. That as soon as you get on that staircase, you're going to kill yourself. It's pretty aggressive. Pretty aggressive. So, turning your page, answer for me. How does the market revolution make this context necessary and possible? How? What about the market revolution puts us on this trajectory as a society? Take a shot. I see you thinking. No, not literally. Don't take a shot because that'll put you on the stairs.
Oh.
It's just one. Talk to me.
So wouldn't it be cheaper to produce, like?
Okay, that's one way to look at it. Like, it's more accessible, kind of, but not what I'm looking for. There's 2 features of the market revolution that make this necessary and more prevalent. 2 features. Anybody? Take a shot. It's a bad line for talking about alcohol, but go ahead.
The wage labor, like.
Yes, keep going.
So that now they just have like a repetitive, monotonous cycle of go to work, get paid a little, and then go solve the problem.
Yep, go to work, get paid a little, go home. The big key there, though, is the first 2 parts. Go to work. What do you have to do after work then? Go home. What's on the way home? Yeah. So by working out of the home, men are stupid. I'm going to just stop and have a couple after work, no problem. You get home, where's your pay for the day? Oh, I spent it. I'll get it back tomorrow. And the second piece is that part about getting paid a wage. Now we have money to spend. What are we going to spend it on? Alcohol. A couple cold ones with the boys. There it is. So both of those features, if you're working on a farm, do you get paid every day? No. Do you have to go home after work? No, you're at home. So like that feature of Americans having money in their pocket and not being at home anymore allows for this culture and prevalence of alcoholism. So those are the 2 features that, like you said, you didn't know you were saying it, but they go to work and they get paid a little bit. Nicely done, guys. So let's take a look at some numbers. This is the, Americans are wild. I love this. This is annually. What does annual mean?
Yearly.
Yeah, in a year, how much is each American consuming of distilled spirits? Not beer, not wine, not hard cider like William Henry Harrison, but hard alcohol. At the time, rum, whiskey, gin, or brandy. Hard alcohol. In gallons a year. This is the start of the market revolution. So there's some data that says the market revolution caused us to drink more. And this is the beginning of the temperance movement. This is about 1830. Temperance begins. The American Anti-Alcohol Institute, a bunch of organizations are founded by women to stop using alcohol. So according to this chart, Is the temperance movement successful?
Yeah.
Significantly. It drops alcohol consumption by a lot. And it stays down, much about a gallon. What's a gallon a year? It stays down for the rest of the 1800s. Yeah. It's quite clear that we see temperance is the most successful of the antebellum era reforms. Temperance is one movement that actually gets done when it says it's going to get done. Now, in temperance, they're never trying to end alcohol consumption. That'll happen later. With prohibition, just trying to limit how people are drinking their alcohol. Good. I know you like that? You want to see it again? All right, fine. It goes both ways. Whoa. Now, the next piece of reform is in education. Now, there's three factors that lead us to a place of wanting to reform our education system. The first is we're still working off of Enlightenment philosophy. So Enlightenment philosophy, I agree with fully in this case, argues that all humans come to the world with what's called a tabula rasa, a blank slate. That you're not born smart, you're not born dumb, you're not going to be born average, you're not born smart, you're all just born blank. And it's society's job to build each of you up to a place from a blank slate, a blank zero-sum starting point, to a place where you can be successful in the world. If we all accept the fact that whether you're rich, poor, or in the middle class, all kids are a blank slate, then we have this societal obligation to fill that blank slate with knowledge. That's one of the reasons I'm a teacher, right? If I was a teacher and I believed that like some kids were smart, but other kids weren't, they could never learn, should I be a teacher? No. Because I would be going against the ideas of education, of bettering kids for the future. So Enlightenment philosophy, the second is political philosophy. Question for you. Now that we're in the 1830s and 40s, who can vote? All, for the most part, almost all men. If we're going to let almost all men vote, shouldn't they also be educated? Know how to read for themselves, make their own decisions? Absolutely. So as we expand what's called the electorate, we need to also expand how we're educating the electorate. To work on things like civic virtue, making decisions for society, political thought. And the third is socioeconomic factors. As we industrialize, we see more kids working in child labor. That worries some people, and we think instead of working in factories, our kids should be in school, hence school. How many of you guys hate school? Raise your hand. I don't blame you. I understand. Yeah, how many of you would rather be working in a factory right now for 15 hours a day?
How much am I getting paid?
How much do you get paid? Not enough.
Oh.
Okay, you win. First of all, you cannot work child labor because you're the size of a grown-ass man. Man labor. Yeah, we don't have the mental backbone like a man.
I can live in the basement.
So, the people we should know for education reform, of course, many of which are women. Catherine Beecher is a big one. Catherine Beecher is worth knowing. She's really the architect of this idea of kindergarten, of starting school early so that kids can get a head start. If they're a blank slate, we should start coloring on that blank slate early before a bunch of other factors in society start coloring on it the wrong way. I agree. But she's also one that believes that it's not just about reading and writing, but also about learning about your health, being active, learning about the arts and music. So Catherine Beecher plays a huge role in early education reform as a woman advocate for change. Two other women, Emma Willard and Elizabeth Blackwell, are both worth noting as well. And again, these names are helpful to have in your back pocket, because when you see a DBQ and you see a Catherine Beecher document, you're like, okay, cool, done, let's go. That's about education. Catherine Beecher's younger sister, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Anybody? Ring a bell? She'll come back. Harriet Beecher Stowe, author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, one of the books that I was leading the Civil War. But Emma Willard and Elizabeth Blackwell pushing for education of women, that women should have equal access to education that men do, and Elizabeth Blackwell, an early advocate for medicine, for teaching doctors to do things other than what our old medicine system of like, oh, you're sick? Let me cut you open so you can bleed that disease out. Oh, you're sick? Here, I got some leeches. Put those on you, they'll suck out that sickness real quick and be good as new. Oh, hey, here's some heroin, morphine, methamphetamines. Now you'll feel really good for 12 hours. Headache gone. Yeah, you're addicted to meth now. Yeah, shit happens. So, started to actually research some aspects of real modern medicine that'll change the way in which we look at the world around us. Now, the place I want you to know is a phenomenal part of American history called Oberlin College. Oberlin College. It is in Oberlin, Ohio, which is right here where this black asterisk is. Now, Oberlin College is right over the Ohio River from Kentucky. What does Kentucky have that Ohio does not have? Slavery. They don't have Henry Clay. This is true. Ohio does not have Henry Clay. So, Oberlin College is really the first place in America where we see black people, white people, and women of both colors going to school on equal footing. Oberlin College is this early, awesome example of equality in American education. So, of course, Oberlin College becomes kind of the hotbed launch point for the abolition movement, for women's rights movements, for equality movements, because we have equality there, so therefore that's where movements begin. I would argue that Oberlin College is the equivalent for like abolition and women's rights that Boston was for the American Revolution. That's a good comparison to get your mind around. Why was Boston the hotbed of the American Revolution? Because that's where the most democracy was. That's where they were being the most restricted. So of course a lot of the revolution grows from Boston. So and logically it makes sense that Oberlin College would have that role for reform movements. So in education, we see a huge growth in this time period in public schools. Free access to everybody in public schools. Now before 1820, there's a lot of public education in one part of the country. Which part do you think it is?
The northern.
What? There's a lot of free public education already existing before 1820. Somewhere in America. Where? New England. New England has had free public schools really since like colonial days and post-revolutionary days. The rest of the country is going to start catching up. And it's not just about education, but also moral training. Teaching kids to be morally upstanding people. Again, largely through middle-class America, education is going to serve a couple things. One, social advancement. If you're educated, you can advance in society. Two, the 3 R's. Who knows what 3 R's are? It's a good old school. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Carlos Gonzalez in first period was so confused he couldn't figure it out. He's like, but mister, writing doesn't even start with an R. I'm like, yeah, fool, now that was arithmetic, but here we are, right? It's called the 3 R's. But also instilling this good Protestant ethic of doing the right thing, being a good human, taking care of others. The big figure to know is Horace Mann. Horace Mann is really the architect of Massachusetts public education system, and he kind of is, we consider him like the godfather of American education. Horace Mann. Horace Mann. Reading, writing, arithmetic. So Carlos was like, but I don't get it. And he is America's most famous champion of public education. So I want you to read a short excerpt of his and tell me, according to here, what reasons does he give to invest in public education? Why is he pro-education? Take 2 minutes to read and answer the question, and we'll go from there. 2 minutes. Read it and go. Why? Why is he pro-investing in education? talk to me. Christoph, what's one reason why he is pro-education?
That he believes that it could prevent being poor.
Yeah, it helps prevent poverty. Absolutely. Jeremy, why else?
He said that educating people allows them to defend themselves.
Yeah, it allows them to better themselves. Absolutely. Ash, why else? You only put Christoph? That's all you did? I'm so sorry. Life is rough. Kelly, what else? One more time. Yeah. In a sense, it is society's equalizer. I mean, Horace Mann's not perfect. He looks at schools as a way to make sure that it's American schools that are educating kids, not their immigrant parents. But that's a Horace Mann perspective because he's in Massachusetts with a lot of Irish people. But in terms of like education being a great equalizer in society, I could not agree with him more. My quote of the week is Horace Mann. Education, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of the conditions of men. The balance wheel of the social machinery. Because if he's born poor, he's born middle class, and he's born rich, but they all get educated, that's an equalizer. Now, it doesn't mean they're all going to make the same amount of money, because sometimes it takes generations to get really financially equal. But from a socially speaking perspective, education equalizes people. Who agrees with that statement? Hopefully, all of you agree to some extent. That if you go and get yourself a college degree, it doesn't matter where you came from, nobody can take that away from you. All right? If you then go get a graduate degree, nobody can take that away from you. If you're like my dumbass and you want to go get a second master's degree, nobody can take that away either. Then it's the great equalizer in society is this idea of getting educated and proving that you know and you belong somewhere. So we have the publishing of new young kid readers, largely by McGuffey's, the very famous one. McGuffey's and Collected Reader are used to teach kids. James has a fine dog. See him run and play. The dog will not bite. It's good to know. Now we know. But, it should look familiar to how way kids read now. Right? The words they should use and then sentences with those words. With a little picture to help you. Not a whole lot has changed in reading education. Can you try one? Whichever one you want. Pick one. Show me.
What'd I do?
Read.
Oh.
You tell me, bro. Whichever one you feel most confident with.
Alright. James has to find dog.
The one I just read?
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. So, way to go.
I didn't know.
You can not pay attention. Okay. So, Horace Mann also argues, to a point that's not in there, that an educated electorate, people that vote should have education, is essential to the working of a free political system. So under him in Massachusetts and elsewhere in the country, we start compulsory or required student education. That you guys are required to be in school. You can blame Horace Mann if you don't want to be in school today. But with it, under Horace Mann's guidance in Massachusetts, it's the state that begins actually training teachers. To make sure that if we're going to make and require kids to go to school, we need to make sure the teachers are qualified as well. There we go. So with all these changes, it's important that we get our heads around the role of women in here as well. Evangelicalism is bringing changes to white middle-class families with this idea of this cult of domesticity. Big picture, the big change here is about actually raising and bringing up children as opposed to just having kids so they can work on your farm. This idea of raising kids, not just in Republican motherhood, which is about politics, but in Christian morals and values and politics and raising well-rounded kids. What a concept. Through this idea of this cult of domesticity, women become being seen more as companions, as partners in a marriage, as opposed to servants in a marriage. Sorry, ladies. Huh? That's why Earl Banks still single. Wives become companions to their husbands with a separate cutout role that's theirs to own and control. What do you usually write after one question? Where do you go next? The next question? We get that Horace Mann for this level of critical thinking. So this cult of domesticity redefines women's roles into what we can call separate spheres. That women run the household, women raise religious, educated, political, well-rounded young kids that are ethical, that have high character, and women this is their sphere to control. Whereas men's sphere is out of the home, at the bar. What's that?
So like, if the woman didn't do
Louder.
if the woman didn't do a good job of raising the kid, and he became like a society kind of expected of like some of them, like become alcoholics. Like, does that make a woman look bad? Or?
Yeah, I mean, that's an individual type of basis as opposed to society. Yes, sir.
Do they still call it, or like, can we still call this Republican motherhood?
This is the next step. Republican motherhood is more about like politics only. The cult of domesticity is in direct response to women working out of the home in the market revolution. It's like, no, get back in your domestic sphere, but don't worry, the entire domestic sphere is yours. So for cult of domesticity, if I were you, I would put like buzzwords next to it, like domestic, separate sphere. That it gives women this sphere to control, this part of society to control, which in some ways is seen as progress for women. This whole idea of like partnership as opposed to servanthood is progress, but with a lot more progress to go. Yes, sir? Yeah, 2 spheres. Well, this is encouraging women to not go work out of the home, to not do the low girl type of approach, but rather stay home. So legally speaking, the husband is still cannot be challenged as the head of household because they have the legal rights, they have the economic rights, they have the political rights, but it does give women some sense of control socially. That it's women's job to socially make sure the kids are raised well, to control their husbands, to make sure that the house is run well along those lines. It's a cult of domesticity. Also, this is important that now, whose job is it to raise the kids? Because the men are gone. Because men are out working in factories, out here, out there. So because of men leaving the home, thanks to market revolution, it becomes solely the women's job to raise the kids. So the kids are a reflection there. Because of things like this and the market revolution itself, the number of kids decreases per family. The number of kids decreases by about 25%. And we start actually looking at raising kids as a real human thing to do, as opposed to an animalistic thing to do. You have kids and then they go work on the farm. But much more of raising good quality young people. The next piece also, as women play a huge role in it, is asylum reform. Now, if we look at all problems in the world as fixable, then what purpose should our jails serve? Yeah, to fix who? Yeah. Then we should look at prison and insane asylums as ways to help fix people, not punish people. Up to this point, people that are punished for crimes, it's very like a very specific set of punishments, right? You steal something, you lose your hand, that kind of thing. Or if you're insane, you get locked in some chains and put into a cage and said you're crazy. Yeah. So if we're going to look at the world though and say that everything is fixable, then our prisons and our asylums should be there to fix things. The name that I'll hear is Dorothy Dix. Please know Dorothy Dix because she plays a huge role in fixing our mental institutions. What she does, it's a good precursor to later. She uses the written word and journalism to expose how bad treatment is for people in mental facilities. Because of her exposure, 15 different states fixed their penitentiary system and their insane asylum system to try to adjust for like the fact that these are still humans that can be fixed and reformed, so we should treat them like humans. Here, for example, is Pennsylvania's state lunatic asylum, so the name's still kind of insensitive still, but you know.
Is that the White House?
It's a nice place. It's got nice grounds. Nobody's in a cage. So because of Dorothy Dix's work, we really start pushing to more of reforming the person instead of like just caging the person.
Yeah.
Until Trump's presidency eventually.
So we still go in North.
So the last big thing that logically comes out of this is also abolitionism. you think logically, we're trying to fix society's problems. The biggest problem that we don't want to talk about is the fact that humans own other humans. So logically speaking, abolition does make sense in the context of the Second Great Awakening. We have two views on this, and I'll spend way more time for my first lecture of period 5 on Monday, is on abolition and the response to it. So we're not going to spend too much time on this today, but we have a whole bunch of abolitionists, and we'll get to read on Monday John Calhoun, our favorite John Calhoun, such a good-looking man, as you guys know from those pictures, saying, no, slavery's good for the slave. Look, check us out. We're good to go. So that's Monday. But it's important that we also understand that abolitionism really grows as part of the Second Great Awakening reform movements. We have two views, moderates, so not too extreme views on abolition. Is like, hey, we should free the slaves slowly, otherwise we're going to have a race war of black versus white. We can't coexist. And when they get freed, we can send them on a ship back to Africa. Because that's what they want. Back to their homeland. We go so far, England, other European nations, and ourselves, in this global context of freeing slaves, to establish a nation in Africa called Liberia for freed slaves to go back to Africa too. Liberia, what does that sound like? Liberty, right? Someone for sure was like, library. Sure, it does sound similar to, like, you're not wrong.
What's your accent from?
Yeah. No, it's not a Razo. But the capital of Liberia, anybody know? Any guesses?
Library?
No. Capital of Liberia is Monrovia.
Wakanda.
Named after president at the time, James Monroe. Yeah. So this is one approach, but the more popular approach is this more radical or extreme approach that says they don't need to go back to Africa, and we shouldn't free them slowly. They should be freed today, and if not today, we'll settle for tomorrow. And that's the approach taken by William Lloyd Garrison, very important name we'll look at more on Monday, who is a white journalist who devotes his entire life to abolitionism. He starts a whole newspaper called The Liberator. He gets almost killed numerous times by southern slaveholding mobs who don't like the fact that he's advocating to end slavery. Former slaves that are very famous, like Frederick Douglass, there he is. Frederick Douglass, he starts a newspaper titled The North Star. Other slaves like Sojourner Truth does the same, and they are recounting their actual slave experiences, trying to make society more sympathetic for slaves. It's really hard to say slavery is beneficial to slaves when you have freed slaves' perspectives that are saying, not so much.
Wait, so
I'm waiting.
like no, not like that. I have a question for you. So if they were freed slaves, does that mean like did they buy their freedom?
Were they escaped?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they able to-
What?
were they able to buy their freedom?
It depends, dude. You ask such specific questions for like the broad entire suicide rate. So turn your page. I have a good piece of anti-slavery propaganda that sends a deeper Second Great Awakening message. It's on the board as well. Take 1 minute. I'll give you 2. Take 2 minutes, please, with your partner. What is the historical context for this situation? What's happening around this? What is the audience? What is the point of view of this cartoon? It's up here as well. 2 minutes, go. Chat it out. Go for it. I have a better version right here. Sir.
Oh, it's talking about
Which is the root
Treachery.
brutality.
injustice,
Look at the big picture. What are you trying to get across?
violence. I would say violence.
Smart.
No, I'm looking at this.
Chase.
Oh.
Injustice and Okay, so just like the foundation or like what they call it back then, slavery institutions leads to all these negative aspects.
Good cartoon. No way, are you writing or are you just chilling? What are you reading? Oh, she's trying to be a scholar, you're over here distracting her. Sorry.
I wrote more than used it as a scholar.
Abolitionist.
5 seconds.
Yeah, I said send an audience, right?
Huh?
All right.
Wait, what?
I send an audience, right?
Johnny, talk to us. What message is this cartoon trying to get across, sir?
The abolition of slavery.
Uh-huh. What about it?
Like, they don't support it. And that's all I got from it.
Okay.
Honestly.
Okay. You're right. They're trying to abolish slavery by chopping down this tree. There's a deeper embedded message here as well. Shaylee, take a shot at it. What do you think? What message is this cartoon trying to get across that's a little bigger than just ending slavery? What? Ooh! That you kill slavery, what else are you also going to kill? Yeah! Lust, brutality, robbery, violence, rape, treachery, villainy. Interesting, right? And that the real roots of slavery are greed and injustice. And if we kill the tree of slavery, you're going to kill a bunch of other of society's sins. Doesn't that make perfect sense in the context of the Second Great Awakening?
Yeah.
Of trying to address as many societal sins as possible?
Yeah.
What else do we see up here? I see...
What is that? Adultery.
It is loaded with all the villainies of human nature. That slavery itself holds so many problems of society that if we just kill slavery, we'll solve all those other problems as well. I would argue that's not quite true. Yes, these things are all present in slavery, but I argue they're also present places that slavery does not exist. Yeah, the north, parts of the west. It's just human nature. If you fix this one problem in society, it still exists because humans are still bad people. I see the snake. A little biblical reference, yes?
Oh, Adam and Eve.
Ah.
Me? No, that's a girl.
Oh, dang, I thought that was a guy.
It's me on the tree.
I see a woman and a man together. I see a woman and a man together, which points out, at least, they're recognizing the role of women in this reform movement. That's a big deal. It's a good cartoon. That's your favorite one, better than King Andrew? If I were you guys, I'd brush up on King Andrew because it might be present on your written test. Who knows? Who knows? Really? I don't know anything. So, who are these abolitionists? In general, abolitionism is most appealing to small-town northerners. There are some free black people in the north. Where will they be found?
Northeast.
Be more specific. Cities. So, places where black people aren't really present, they're like, yeah, abolish slavery. In general, places where black people are present, white people will be like, no, don't abolish slavery. Because if we free black people, that then means job competition. That means interracial marriage. That means people are still scared of that now, bro. It's 2018. Yeah.
Wait. You're scared of interracial marriage, but then didn't like half of the dudes that colonized here get with the natives?
But and then how many slave owners get with their Thomas Jefferson? So, Luis, I know I got you excited at the prospect of marriage. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. That's way. You have to convince You have to convince a human and also part of a human's family to let you. Yeah, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. You'll do what?
I'll just ball on them.
He said ball.
I'll just show them that.
I don't want to hear about what you're going to do on anybody. That's weird.
You put your balls on
Yeah, right. That's not going to work.
I said I'll show them that.
He's going to convince somebody to marry him with his basketball ability. And his golf skills. Alright, back up here. Now that we've discussed Luis's ability to not convince somebody to marry him. So it's important that we understand, especially early, abolition is very unpopular. If you hadn't touched your stuff, we would have that problem. Especially early, abolition is very unpopular. It's unpopular in urban areas of the North because they're worried about job competition. It's unpopular anywhere close to what's called the Mason-Dixon line, which is a good new term for today. The Mason-Dixon line is this dividing line between North and South, slave and free, going to the Ohio River. And it's unpopular because of racism. Question for you. Can you be anti-slavery and also racist? 100%. Like I said, you can be a strict interpreter of the Constitution like Jackson and like states' rights and not go as far as nullification. You can be like, I don't like slavery and also still believe that white people are superior to black people. So, it's important that as we look through the abolition view of things, specifically for our lecture 1 of period 5 next week, that abolition takes a long time to become a more popular movement. People are worried about interracial marriage. People are worried about economic competition. Factory workers, the immigrants can be the most racist against black people and pro-slavery because they realize that if we free slaves, slaves will come to this northern city and have to compete with them for jobs. So it's important that we get our mind around there's a lot of social factors that go into this question of abolitionism. Now, one of the big problems for abolitionism is they split as a movement over women's rights. Women play a huge role in abolition. A huge role. William Lloyd Garrison, for example, puts a woman as an executive on his American Anti-Slave Society. He's a big high-up person in this anti-slave organization. And he gets, not actually killed, but public opinion-wise, killed for it. Who puts a woman in leadership for a movement this important? And it really is the women's role in the abolition movement that tells women we need to have our own movement. Women get involved heavily in abolition. And when the abolition movement splits over whether women can have a leadership role in this process or not, women are like, yeah, we need to do something about this for ourselves. So that's the next domino to fall, is women get involved in abolition. Abolition doesn't treat them right for all of their work, and then we see next is the women's rights movement. So the whole point that I was making earlier this morning with the Do Now was that women get involved in reform movements because of their own rights. And I argue differently. What were women involved in before their own movement? Talk to me.
It was like a domino effect because first they got involved in religion.
Yep.
Through the same Great Awakening.
Yep.
And that inspired them to be able to do abolition movement.
Before that. Right? We got religion first, and then education, insane asylums, abolition, raising kids, and then it's not until they get involved in all these other things they're like, hey, wait a second. You know who else needs some rights around here? We do. So it's important that because Slane made such a good point earlier about women as the morally upstanding of the two sexes, that they put all of these progress pieces before themselves before realizing we should probably do something about ourselves as well. Because they're way more moral. What's up? What's up? Whatever. Thursday's fine. So we do see this, and we'll go into more of the abolition movement on Monday, but some abolitionists are going to finally form their own political party. The Liberty Party in 1840, which is a big deal. This first real political party that's founded on the idea of ending slavery. Big deal. So with all this said, what do you think the government's going to do about this? We have these new groups that are fighting for the end of slavery. What's the government going to do? In 1840, 36 is Van Buren, so 40 is William Henry Harrison, 1841 is Henry Harrison takes office for 35 days, and then Tyler.
So we're on time.
What's the government going to do about slavery? Nothing. They're going to ignore it to the point where they actually pass a law in the Senate. It's called the gag rule, which stops any discussion of slavery before it even starts. It basically makes it illegal to even have a discussion in Congress about slavery. The most American rule of all time. The South loves that. Because America is more worried about keeping the status quo than having hard discussions. Funny enough, I know we hate on him for his presidency, but John Quincy Adams goes back to Massachusetts, gets elected to the House of Representatives, serves for a really long time in Congress, and he's the one over and over and over again who's violated the gag rule. And saying, I have an idea, let's talk about slavery. And he gets in trouble in Congress all the time for violating this. This cartoon is him laying here saying, I'm laying on petition after petition after petition of people in America signing petitions, which they have the constitutional right to do, asking for us to discuss slavery. And we can't. And he's being shouted down. So this gag rule is important. If I were you, it would be in your notes, but that's just me. Which demonstrates that America is more willing to ignore its problems than deal with them specifically as they relate to slavery. Okay. Luis put them in his notes, guys, don't worry. So it really is women's role in abolition that shows women they need their own equality movement. It's women being told in their own movement they helped start that they're not welcome because they're women that leads women to say, you know what, we should probably have our own little side conversation here. So Lucretia Mott, it's funny to you? Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton are the two need-to-know names for women's rights in the Antebellum movement. We'll give you a lot of names today. It'd be helpful if you knew all of them. They don't need notes. And they really hold the first national meeting for women's rights in Seneca Falls, New York. Very important to hear one of those years I think you have to know of 1848. Now, what I want you to know is common history always says that the women wanted the right to vote. It was a political movement. Is that true? Yeah. They are, in fact, going to demand the right to vote. We are people. We need to have political say. We don't have political say. We're not part of this country. We're part of this country. Give us the right to vote. But a less commonly understood idea of this is it's also a social equality movement. The Seneca Falls Declaration will fully reject the cult of domesticity. As saying we don't need separate spheres. We don't want separate spheres. We don't want to be told, this is your home sphere, you take care of that. No. Gender equality. We don't want separate roles for the sexes. We want to be able to do things that everybody else does. We want to be able to own property, own businesses, get our own education, get divorced if we feel like it, mind our own goddamn business. Because we're humans too. So it's important you guys understand that it's not just a political movement, it's also a social rejection of the cult of domesticity. A social rejection of separate spheres. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes for you to skim through an excerpt of their Declaration of Rights. Here's what it looks like. They're all dressed all nice. Look at these men in the galleries making fun of them. They produced the Declaration of Sentiments, is their written document they come up with afterwards to produce for the world to see. And they're going to start it the same way the Declaration of Independence starts. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. And we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. And it's not King George that's taking, that's not plagiarism. You're taking somebody else's style and making it your own. That's just smart journalism. They're taking Jefferson's approach, but instead of listing complaints against King George, they're going to list complaints against a patriarchal society. It worked for Jefferson. It worked for them. So take 4. I want you to identify what are their complaints, what are their specific complaints, and why is it significant that they model it after the Declaration of Independence, okay? 4 minutes, skim it quick, and we'll go from there. You guys are doing a great job today. I know Antebellum Reform movements aren't the most exciting of things. You're reading. It's a good declaration. So you learn to leg sprint. Got a minute left. So specific complaints and why it's significant debate in modern after the Declaration of Independence. Got the next two of those. It's hot. Dying. Where's that? What?
You got some water.
Cool, thanks, bro.
No, it's
It's in there. Stay warm, kid. Yeah. You'd be a good aspect to society? If you don't know what the hell you're talking about, what the hell is an aspect to society?
Like, I'm gonna contribute a lot, so I'm gonna be a great addition to
You're gonna be a great aspect to society? No. You're gonna be one of those. The poor farmers. Now, talk to me. What are their complaints? Hilda, give me a complaint.
This is saying how like men still have like the higher authority than women.
Okay, sure. Santos, another complaint.
They can't vote.
They can't vote. Rubes, another complaint.
They don't have a right to an education.
Yeah, they don't have an obligated right to education. Eliana, what else?
I put their rights are given to ignorant men.
Yeah. We give ignorant men more rights than educated women. That's a problem. 2018. Good. Linda, what's another complaint? What? Okay. I like the one that says, he's created a false public sentiment by giving to the world a different code of morals for men and women. That's a significant problem in today's society. A different code of morals for men and women. If a man dates a lot of girls, what do we say about him? He's a player, right? A game. If a girl dates a lot of guys,
She's a hoe.
Does you're showing your ankles? What is?
we got Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott pointing out problems in 1848 that I would argue are also 2018 problems. How many of these things are political statements? A couple of them. But it's also important to understand there's a lot of social demands in here and also economic demands. So good on these women. Don't worry, it'll only take them from here another 70 years to get the right to vote.
Wait, what?
For voting.
Right? Just to vote. Don't worry, but that'll be the theme the rest of the year. It's women demanding more, and sometimes being defeated by society, and sometimes being defeated by women. Shh. So the last piece are these freaking weirdos I've saved for last, called the utopian communities. Some groups realize that they can't fix society, so they might as well make their own perfect community separate from society. Any utopia just means a perfect, ideal community. Robert Owen is an important name worth noting, and Charles Fourier. They create, for the first time in American history, socialist communities where everything is shared, everybody's equal. It's called Brook Farm, where everybody works the same jobs, everybody has the same access to materials. First early experimentation with socialism. It's important. We have these Shakers, who I think are the best because they're hilarious looking. I'll show you a picture in a minute. But they really believe in sexual equality. So really it's these utopian communities where for the first time we actually start seeing true equality in America. Where these Shakers believe in full sexual equality for men and women. So everybody is married to everybody. Which sounds real complicated. It is. Hey. But then you have to share the weeds with everybody. I know. Everyone's like, no, screw the Shakers. So, but again, they're this separate utopian community. Third worth noting is the Oneida community. They're even more fun. They're like, well, you know what? We think that Christ's second coming has already happened. So we're already living in a not post-apocalypse, but a post-return of Christ world. So since Christ has already come back, there's no need to even live by any moral rules. We have no God to impress. He's already back living amongst us. So they're all about no moral rules, free love, everybody has sex with everybody. There's no need for marriage or anything else. So something cool. Yeah, they're kind of very hippie-ish. Yeah. He's much more. He's coming. Don't worry. Here's the Shakers. They're all doing the Thriller dance. There's Luis. But again, they're all about simplicity, living together, being equal, sharing resources, and taking care of their business. Now the last piece that I'll get to are the Transcendentalists. Now the Transcendentalists are wild. But this is his point about the lack of intellectual thinking in America. The Transcendentalists are, unlike the rest of them, for everything else I've told you today, there's root in religion. This is the one thing for today that is not a Second Great Awakening religious movement. It is an intellectual and philosophical movement. Gotta know that. And it's all about getting in touch with nature. Getting in touch with yourself. Getting in touch with your own universal spiritual forces. Yes, it is. Michael Bush is a transcendentalist. Have you heard his announcements last year? What's up, brothers and sisters, beautiful boxers? Just know you're sitting on a speck of dust in the universe, hurtling through us. Just think about the fact that you're here right now, just due to chance, and take advantage of your world because it's all just chance and randomness. And put your hand down, so I don't give a shit what you have to say. Cool. Didn't ask. Don't care. Moral of the story.
Michael Bush is
Moral of the story. Mike Bush is a transcendentalist. Is that how I taught it last year? Oh yeah. I'm sad because he doesn't make any of those cool announcements anymore to tell the world they're just on a speck of dust hurtling through the universe. I'll take it thought. So the names we should know, and your texts are there. We're not going to read them today because the bell rings in 4 minutes. But Ralph Waldo Emerson, Michael Bush. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau are the names that are worth pointing out. But both of them are about, all the Transcendentalists are about individualism. Individualism, individual reality, making your own decisions. And it's important that we understand that these guys are a direct result of the market revolution. They're anti-big business, anti-materialism, Anti-defining your success based on economic status. And more so, defining your success on your intellectual ability, on your ability to make your own decisions, on the integrity of your own mind, on individual thinking. They're the opposite of groupthink, the opposite of everybody thinking the same way. For example, Thoreau, I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to live simply, to see what the world had to teach me, and not to see that when I died, I lived for nothing. So very intellectual, individualism driven, very, very, very worth noting. So just some conclusions as we wrap up period 4. In this second half of period 4, post-War of 1812, post-era of good feelings, everybody's trying to improve the world. The market revolution is trying to improve the world economically. The transportation revolution is trying to improve the world infrastructurally. The democratic revolution of the new Democrat Party and the new Whigs is trying to improve the world politically, to make sure that everybody has a political voice. The Second Great Awakening is trying to improve the world religiously. The Reform movement is trying to fix the world's problems. So everybody in this 1820s, 30s, and 40s is trying to improve the nation in a variety of different ways, from an economic standpoint, from a political standpoint, from a social reform standpoint. Everybody's trying to fix the problems that are in the nation. Things we should know in this age of Jackson: universal white male suffrage, the market and transportation revolution, the fact that the executive branch gets strengthened, New Indian policies, social reform policies, and the Second Great Awakening. And then we are done with period 4. On Wednesday, we'll work on some review through thesis writing, if you guys need some work. And to go in and review through writing as well, not a bad thing at all. Make sure you chapter 15 before you go. There's no homework between now and Thursday except for your timeline and your binder, which of course is due on Thursday. Have a great day, and please email me if you need help at all. Oh, also, last thing. Don't forget, there's 2 full separate period 4 review videos on YouTube for you.
Okay.
There's a part 1, which goes up to like the arrogant feelings and the War of 1812. Part 2 is all of this stuff.
Are your PowerPoints on your list?
Yes.